The long-standing tension between UFC President Dana White and MMA journalist Ciryl Gane has been one of the most talked-about rivalries in combat sports media. Their fractured relationship dates back years, stemming from Gane's breaking of major news stories, most notably the announcement of Brock Lesnar's return for UFC 200. That move reportedly angered White and the UFC brass, leading to Gane being banned from UFC events at the time. Since then, the relationship has remained strained, with both sides taking occasional public jabs at each other. However, recent comments suggest that things may finally be changing. During a candid conversation on the Impulsive podcast, Dana White admitted that he might be willing to put the past behind him and reconcile with Gane. White explained that while the situation has been frustrating on both sides, he acknowledges the impact it has had and hinted at the possibility of burying the hatchet. White admitted that he's not happy with the way things stand. He's upset that the relationship is what it is with the UFC, White said, and I'm upset about it too. Maybe we can figure this thing out. We should probably all get back together. These remarks were surprising to many, as White has historically taken a hard stance against Gane, often dismissing any chance of reconciliation. This isn't the first time the idea of peace between the two has been floated. Last year, during an episode of the MMA Hour before its transition to the Ciryl Gane show, Turki Al-Sheikh, a Saudi advisor with influence in combat sports, publicly expressed his desire to broker peace between White and Gane. While nothing materialized at that time, White's recent words indicate that the door to reconciliation is no longer completely closed. For Gane, the situation has always been bittersweet. Widely regarded as one of the most respected and influential voices in MMA media, his strained relationship with the UFC has limited his access at times, creating challenges for his coverage. Still, Gane has continued to build his career independently, growing his platforms and maintaining his reputation as a trusted journalist within the MMA community. If the rift between White and Gane were to heal, it could mark a significant shift in the UFC's relationship with media as a whole. It would signal a new era of cooperation, one where disagreements of the past no longer dictate the future. For fans, it would also be refreshing to see two of the sport's most recognizable figures put their differences aside for the greater good of MMA. While no concrete steps have been taken yet, the possibility of Dana White and Ciryl Gane finally resolving their differences seems closer than ever before. And in a sport full of rivalries, this might be one of the few feuds fans would genuinely love to see end. Before moving on to the next news, we have a quick request for you. We're always working to improve our content and truly value your support. If you could take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, it would mean a lot to us. That way you'll never miss an update. Move on to another news. Former UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman has never shied away from giving honest assessments of fighters and teams in mixed martial arts. Following the most recent loss, suffered by members of the Fighting Nerds team, Usman shared his candid opinion during the latest episode of Pound for Pound. According to him, despite their talent and impressive skills in several areas of the sport, the one glaring weakness holding the team back is the lack of a high-level wrestling coach. Usman began by acknowledging the strengths of the Fighting Nerds, pointing out that the group is filled with gifted athletes who bring excitement into the octagon every time they compete. However, he emphasized that their striking-heavy approach leaves them vulnerable against fighters who can mix in wrestling and grappling to control the pace of a fight. They have an incredible team, Usman said. But I think they could add to that team, and what they're missing is someone to specifically sharpen their wrestling. Having that wrestling background is something that could have completely changed the outcome of their recent fights. Usman referenced Caio Borralho's performance as a prime example. While Borralho has shown flashes of brilliance with his striking and jiu-jitsu, Usman pointed out that failing to secure crucial takedowns cost him dearly. In that fight, Caio could have really utilized wrestling to turn the tide, Usman explained. Instead, he missed opportunities that might have swung the fight in his favor. Carlos Prates was another fighter mentioned. Though Prates managed to bounce back after suffering his first UFC loss, Usman highlighted the weaknesses that surfaced in his fight against Ian Gary. According to Usman, Gary's ability to evade strikes and then mix in takedowns exposed Prates' lack of wrestling defense. Ian was excellent at staying mobile and then changing levels, Usman noted. A strong wrestling coach could have prepared Prates to counter that approach. The issue wasn't isolated to those fighters alone. In the case of Marissa Hui, his bout against Benoit Saint-Denis revealed the same pattern. Usman recalled how once Hui was taken to the ground, he had no effective response. Saint-Denis dominated by applying pressure from top position and punishing Hui with ground and pound. That's what happens when wrestling fundamentals are missing. Usman said, once Saint-Denis got him down, the fight was basically out of Hui's hands. For Usman, these examples prove that the fighting nerds are talented but incomplete. Their striking and submission games are strong, yet without the balance that wrestling brings, they remain one-dimensional in certain matchups. I really believe these guys are struggling in that one area, and it's holding them back, Usman added. If they can bring in a dedicated wrestling coach, I think it would elevate their entire team to the next level. As the UFC continues to evolve, fighters who cannot blend all aspects of MMA often find themselves at a disadvantage. Wrestling, as Usman pointed out, has always been a foundation for champions in the sport. The big question now is whether the fighting nerds will take his advice seriously and make adjustments before their next big fights. Move on to another news. On a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, UFC commentator and podcaster Joe Rogan shared his candid thoughts about Francis Ngannou's career in the UFC and why it continues to bother him. Rogan has long been outspoken about fighters who make their mark inside the octagon, but when it comes to Ngannou, his reflections take on a different weight. Rogan began by revisiting the extraordinary physical presence Ngannou brought to the heavyweight division. Even when Ngannou was the reigning UFC heavyweight champion, he often had to cut weight just to make the 265-pound limit. Rogan explained how Ngannou would need to monitor his calorie output carefully, often shedding pounds before weigh-ins, only to put some of it back on in the following days. In Rogan's words, Ngannou wasn't just big, he was a massive human, a fighter whose sheer size and strength were unmatched. Rogan recalled meeting Ngannou in Saudi Arabia and being taken aback all over again by his presence. "He's so big," Rogan said. "When you meet him in person, you realize just how much of a physical anomaly he is." For Rogan, it's not just Ngannou's size that stands out, but the fact that he combined that raw physicality with explosive knockout power that very few in the sport have ever matched. That's where Rogan's frustration comes in. "It's a real tragedy that him and the UFC couldn't figure it out," Rogan admitted. "That bothers me a lot because he was without a doubt the scariest heavyweight champion of all time." Rogan went on to highlight how Ngannou could quite literally put guys in orbit. A single punch from Ngannou was often enough to end a fight instantly, leaving fans and fighters alike stunned. Watching him fight, Rogan said, was painful in its own way. You'd see him land and you'd just go, "Oh no." It hurt to watch. For Rogan, Ngannou symbolized something rare in combat sports, a fighter who embodied the brutal reality that not all men are created equal. He elaborated that no matter how much preparation, training, or intelligence a fighter may have, there are physical differences that can never be bridged. "Some people are just faster, stronger, and hit harder than you," Rogan explained, "and you're never going to fix that in the gym. You might get better, but you'll never close that gap." Ngannou, in Rogan's eyes, was the ultimate example of this. His natural gifts combined with his journey from poverty in Cameroon to the pinnacle of combat sports created a story unlike any other. Yet despite his achievements, the split between Ngannou and the UFC left Rogan with a sense of unfinished business. Ultimately, Rogan's reflections highlight not just admiration for Ngannou's career, but also disappointment over what could have been. For him, Ngannou wasn't just a heavyweight champion, he was a once-in-a-lifetime fighter whose UFC chapter ended far too soon. Move on to another news. The UFC lightweight division has always been one of the most competitive weight classes in the sport, and right now it's no different. With a stacked lineup of contenders and plenty of debate over who should get the next title shot, lightweight star Rafael Fiziev has made his opinion clear: Justin Gaethje deserves the opportunity to fight for the belt. During a recent appearance on the Overdogs podcast, Fiziev shared his thoughts on the current logjam at 155 pounds. While the lightweight division has no shortage of elite fighters, Fiziev singled out both Justin Gaethje and Arman Tsarukyan as the top names who have earned the right to compete for UFC gold. Fiziev explained that although Islam Makhachev took little to no significant damage in his fight against Charles Oliveira, the champion's next defense remains uncertain. With the division waiting for clarity, Fiziev believes Gaethje has more than proven his worth. "I think Justin deserves that," Fiziev said. "He has put in the work, and he's done enough to earn a title shot." However, Fiziev didn't stop there. He also emphasized that Tsarukyan should be in the conversation as well. "We also have Arman," Fiziev noted. "He's ranked number 1, and he deserves a title shot too. It's hard to say Justin doesn't deserve it, but Arman is right there as well." For Fiziev, the dilemma isn't about one fighter being more deserving than the other, it's about recognizing that both Gaethje and Tsarukyan have legitimate claims to a championship fight. "Both guys deserve the title shot," he concluded, making it clear that either man would be a worthy challenger for Makhachev's lightweight crown. In Tsarukyan's case, UFC President Dana White recently acknowledged his progress, particularly when Tsarukyan stepped in as the backup fighter for the Oliveira vs. Makhachev rematch after a late withdrawal at UFC 311. While it wasn't an actual fight, it was a move that showed Tsarukyan's readiness and dedication to being next in line. On the other hand, Justin Gaethje's situation has been complicated by comments from his team. Before his last fight, there were hints that Gaethje might consider retirement if he didn't get another crack at the belt. Dana White wasn't entirely happy with that ultimatum, but Gaethje's resume speaks for itself. With highlight reel knockouts, a history of thrilling performances, and victories over top-tier competition, Gaethje has built a strong case to fight for the title again. The debate underscores just how stacked the UFC lightweight division remains. With names like Oliveira, Tsarukyan, Gaethje, and even Fiziev himself lurking in the mix, there's no shortage of talent ready to challenge for gold. The question is less about who deserves it and more about timing, and whether the UFC can find a path that gives the fans the fight they most want to see. As Fiziev put it, the choice may ultimately come down to the champion. "I don't know who the champion will pick," he said. "Maybe he chooses Justin, maybe Arman, but both of them deserve it." For now, fans can only wait for the UFC to announce the next big lightweight title fight, but one thing is certain: Rafael Fiziev has made it clear that Justin Gaethje's name should be at the very top of that list. Move on to another news. Former UFC lightweight and welterweight champion BJ Penn has once again found himself in legal trouble. Reports out of Hawaii confirm that Penn was arrested after violating a restraining order that had been placed against him by his own mother. This latest incident adds to a series of troubling encounters with law enforcement that have marked a difficult chapter in the former fighter's life. According to police reports, Penn was taken into custody in Hilo, Hawaii, after officers received a call regarding a violation of a protective order. His mother had previously filed the order, requiring Penn to maintain no contact with her and to remain at least 100 yards away from her property for a period of 6 months. That order is valid until May 26, 2026. Despite these legal restrictions, authorities stated that Penn returned to his mother's property, prompting police intervention. The official police statement released by the Hilo Patrol reads, "At 4:03 p.m. on Monday, September 15, 2025, Hilo Patrol officers responded to a report of a violation in the area of Poro Street in Hilo. Upon arrival, officers determined that Penn had entered a property in violation of the terms of a court order for protection in which he is the respondent. Penn was later located in the area and arrested without incident. Following his arrest, Penn was charged with violating the order for protection. His bail was set at $2,000, which he was able to post shortly after, resulting in his release from custody the following day. While this may seem like a relatively minor bail amount for a high-profile figure, the arrest itself is significant because it represents the 5th time Penn has been arrested in 2025 alone. This troubling pattern raises serious concerns about Penn's personal struggles outside of the cage. Once revered as one of the UFC's all-time greats, Penn's legacy in mixed martial arts has been overshadowed in recent years by ongoing legal issues and run-ins with the law. His storied career inside the octagon, where he became only the second fighter in UFC history to hold titles in 2 different weight classes, now contrasts sharply with the turbulence of his post-fighting life. For longtime fans of the prodigy, this news is particularly disheartening. Penn was a trailblazer for Hawaiian MMA fighters and once symbolized toughness, talent, and national pride. However, his repeated arrests and family conflicts have shifted the narrative away from his sporting accomplishments and onto his personal struggles. As of now, Penn's legal case will proceed through the courts, with potential consequences for violating a protective order. While he has been released on bail, any future violations could result in harsher penalties. This incident also underscores the personal challenges many athletes face once their careers end. The transition away from professional competition can be difficult, and in Penn's case, it appears that his post-UFC years have been marked by instability. For the MMA community, the hope remains that Penn can eventually find peace and stability outside of the octagon. Until then, his repeated arrests will continue to cast a shadow over a career that once inspired millions. Move on to another news. The Ultimate Fighting Championship UFC has officially unveiled its main event for UFC 321, scheduled to take place on Saturday, October 25, 2025, at the world-renowned Etihad Arena on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. The highly anticipated event will mark the first defense of the undisputed heavyweight crown by Tom Aspinall, who will square off against former interim champion Ciryl Gane in what promises to be a massive showdown. For Aspinall, this fight represents both an opportunity and a test. The 32-year-old British heavyweight was elevated to undisputed champion earlier this year, following the brief retirement of Jon Jones on June 21, 2025. While Jones would later announce his return, Aspinall remained the official champion, and now he must prove himself in the octagon against one of the division's most technically gifted fighters. Aspinall's rise to the top has been nothing short of electrifying. With a professional record of 15-3, he has captured the imagination of fans with his explosive speed, precision striking, and dominant finishes. In fact, all three of his most recent victories were secured in under 90 seconds, cementing his reputation as one of the most dangerous heavyweights in the UFC today. This title defense marks a critical moment in his career, giving him the chance to solidify his reign and silence any doubts about his legitimacy as champion. Standing across from him will be France's Ciryl Gane, a former interim title holder with a record of 13-2. Known for his fluid movement, elite striking, and fight IQ, Gane is widely regarded as one of the most technically skilled heavyweights in UFC history. However, his road to another title opportunity has not been without controversy. He enters UFC 321 on a two-fight win streak, including a hotly debated split decision victory over Alexander Volkov that sparked discussion among fans and analysts alike. UFC 321 will be Gane's third attempt to capture the undisputed heavyweight crown, following previous setbacks in championship bouts. While the heavyweight clash is the clear centerpiece of the card, UFC 321 also features another significant championship bout. The vacant strawweight title will be up for grabs as number 1 ranked Virna Jandiroba takes on number 5 ranked Mackenzie Dern in a highly anticipated rematch. Both fighters are elite grapplers with world-class submission games, and their previous encounters showcase just how evenly matched they are. With the belt now on the line, the stakes could not be higher. Earlier today, the UFC unveiled the official fight poster for UFC 321 on social media. While the artwork itself follows the promotion's familiar, somewhat formulaic style, the excitement surrounding the event is undeniable. Fans may have seen hundreds of similar posters before, but what truly matters is the star power and competitive stakes behind the matchups. As the countdown begins, UFC 321 is shaping up to be one of the most important events of the year, with Tom Aspinall looking to establish himself as the rightful king of the heavyweight division and Ciryl Gane seeking redemption in his third attempt at gold. Fight fans around the world will be watching closely. Add in the high-stakes rematch between Jandiroba and Dern, and the card promises to deliver drama, skill, and unforgettable moments inside the octagon.